for me, bravery is a feeling, and you feel the thing that excites you and scares you and what feels right and wrong in your life. And so getting the ability to tap into that and then getting clear on the next step that you're taking is really what the transformation process would be. And I think that that's true for all of us. You don't really need me. You don't even need the journal. You have the ability to do it. A lot of people forget that because we're so told we're supposed to be this and that. And I will get to my life later. Let me just get through your priorities and my kids and whoever else. And the process of remembering who our inner leader is really what I find so interesting, because can you imagine what society would be like if we were all operating from a place where we accessed our inner leader and we were making decisions from a place that is good for our best self, because ultimately that's what's good for the collective self.
Sean Dustin spent time in federal and state prison for drug trafficking and fraud. Upon release in 2006, he had nothing but the clothes on his back, a bag of mail, and legal paperwork. In 2010, he kicked a long-time methamphetamine habit and started the long climb back up the ladder of life. This is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. If you want transparency and authenticity, you're in the right place. This is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast, and this is Sean Dustin.
This episode of the show is sponsored by JH Apparel and Promotions. JH Apparel and Promotions is a distributor of a wide variety of promotional and branding products. Our mission is to provide the best price, quality, and service in the industry. From apparel items to the latest tech gadgets, we are your one-stop shop. We are here to help you create long-lasting relationships with your clients through the power of promotional products. Visit us online at www.jhalimapparel.com or call 803-610-1717 for more information. Use promo code NWTGBUPOD and get 10% off your first order. All information will be available in the show notes. What's up, everybody? Thanks for stopping by the show. This is your first time listening, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. It's good to have you with us today. A couple of things. The Con, still pushing it. thecon.tv for the brand new, actually it was just released in September, but it's a new true crime documentary series about the 2008 financial crisis and everything that The Big Short didn't cover as far as how the con was actually laid out, when it started, how it was covered up, who allowed it to happen. All of that is available in this 5-part docuseries. So if you haven't signed up and you haven't checked it out, go to thecon.tv where you can watch the first episode for free. If you like it, if you're intrigued, $9.99 is all it costs for 14 days to rent it. And that's 4 more episodes that you get to check out. Trust me, people, it is worth it. I went and bought it again. I watched it 3 times. And I bought it again, and I donated $10 to it, over. So, I mean, this is how much I believe in this movie, to the point that I'm advertising it for free. I'm not getting paid for these ads. I'm doing it because this is something that I think everybody needs to check out. So if you haven't checked it out and you want to see it, go to thecon.tv. Super simple. There are 3 different platforms that you can watch it on. I've had on episode 55, one of the producers, Patrick Lovell. If you go to the latest episode on 73, I had another one of the producers and the associate producer on. So please go check out the con. Next up is IndiePods United Virtual Summit. Please join us for the very first IndiePods United Virtual Summit. Here you will observe and learn from other podcasters how to take what you can't stop thinking about and turn it into something real. The online event for new and veteran podcasters where we come together to create with one another. The IndiePods United Convention happens on November 29th through December 3rd, 2020. featuring amazing shows, speakers, breakout sessions, entertainment, games, and plenty more as we dive in to learn more about the fascinating world of podcasting. For event information, please visit the Facebook public group IndiePods United. Tickets will be available through Eventbrite. The IndiePods United Virtual Summit. Together we listen. Relevant links and direct links are available in the show notes for the Facebook group and the Eventbrite tickets. Today's guest, and I'm going to say this is another one that was pulled from probably 6 months ago, and this is with Vanessa McDonald, and she explains about her Bravery journal and what she's doing in the personal development and bravery space. So let's get to the show. This is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast, and I'm your host, Sean Dustin. Today I'm talking with Vanessa McDonald. Vanessa spent 17 years in corporate and radically changed her life and decided to follow her passion. And she's going to tell us a little bit about that today. Hi, Vanessa.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well, as can be expected in our current situation.
The new normal, as it's called.
Yeah.
But really, what does that mean?
I don't know, man. I'm trying not to watch any mainstream media. My ex gives me all the information, or the emergency action messages that shoot across our cell phone.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about your situation and what brought you to want to be a guest on my show today.
Yeah, I think like many people, I was really good at following rules. And for me, that meant going to school, studying, coming out, getting a job, and, following up a career path. And in my case, it was communications. So it began as an intern, and I moved up very quickly up that ladder. And then it kind of feels like a game of Tetris when you're doing that. And when you do get to the top of whatever that is, that learning and that growth stops, because you're no longer climbing. You kind of sit there, and you can often see it with people who, especially people who are lucky enough to have pensions. There's not that many left in that world who have that, but the light starts to go out of your eyes. And I could really feel that happening. It felt very comfortable. And I finally, and of course, when you're younger, you can do those things because it's easy to jump around and move. But as you're older and there's family responsibilities and financial responsibilities, it's tougher. But we have one life to live. And so for me, the answer was to jump out and be brave. And that led me to me creating the Brave Journal, which is a journal that really guides the process of stepping out and kind of changing your life. And that's what led me to do the same thing, to actually follow what I wrote in the journal and live in integrity with it. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
That's interesting. Yeah, you brought up a good point, and I don't think you're alone in the fact that you're one of those individuals that followed the rules. The government likes people like you that follow the rules, that that play along with the game of life, and whatever that is. I used to think that it was go to school, get into sports, get into college, do all of these, cross the T's and dot the I's, I call it, of going from adolescence to adulthood to, be having a family and all of that stuff. And it's really not, I just think it's an outdated, it's an outdated way of doing things, since we have so many different ways that we can do other things now that are more important and that we find meaning in.
Yeah, and I don't think we're taught that. We're in school, we're taught the exact opposite. So we, it's a safety thing. It's you need to do this because you need to eat. You need to learn that because it's the best thing that's going to give you the best chance to have the right house and the right whatever. And I think some of us are lucky enough. And I think that's happening more and more, to realize that, that experience is a created one. So yes, that is a path you can take, but you also have the opportunity to create your own. And once you realize that, you can't unsee that. And that's when I think you really wake up. That's, the there's entrepreneurs who see that, and others where it's the ability to create the experience that you're having, and it doesn't have to look like you were told it looks.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because we get told a lot of things when we're kids. There's a lot of examples that, or fear-based things, like you're saying. How are you going to eat? How are you going to support yourself?
Yeah.
Is that job going to be good for you? I don't know.
Yeah.
And we're sitting in a time right now where, AI is on the brink of replacing a bunch of different occupations. And so what you may have thought, when you were a kid now, that job may not be available when it's
the great lie, right? I think this is exactly, and it's why for me the idea of bravery was so important, because I think I even understood that concept in a very different way than what it has come to mean for me. I see it as the ability to access your inner leader and to listen to yourself first. And that was really what, for me, started the process, which is, what is the right thing that feels right for you? What is the step that makes sense right now? Not what you think you're supposed to make, not what someone else's boundaries are telling you. What is the thing for you? And the more I questioned myself and asked, why can't you be brave today? The answers were coming back very different from what I should be doing.
So did you get a lot of pushback from family, from people in your circle? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I left a really well-paying job, and not a job that I didn't like. It was great. I could have sort of ride that out. It was comfortable. And when I made this decision, a lot of people were, I think there's two sides. There's some that look at you and go, oh, that I really want to do, but I can't. And they have immediately, before they've even finished their sentence, the 10 to 15 excuses why that's not possible for them. You somehow have a special reason. And then there's the others that just can't understand it. And it's crazy. And we'll tell you all the reasons why they can. And what you come to realize is they're not talking through what they think is good. They're worried about you. It's coming from a place of, I need to protect you because you're going to a very dangerous place. And so you really have to be very trusting in your own opinion, in your belief in yourself, that it might not work. This might not work. The journal might not be something that is going to be able to sustain life, and people might not want it, but I know that I'm trusting my gut, that there's something here and there's someone that needs to hear it. And that's all I have. And that's enough.
Yeah. I had I don't know if you, saw any of or listened to any of my podcasts, but I do have one episode with, a woman named Emily Ann Peterson, and she talks about bravery as well. Like, the episode is about her bravery school that she now teaches and coaches and stuff like that. And I got to be honest with you, when she was talking about it, I was having a hard time understanding, because I've never looked at being brave like that. You know what I mean? When you think about being like brave, what's bravery? A soldier going into the line of fire, that's right. Brave. Doing other things, that would be considered brave, like a first responder, or, somebody that puts, their own safety, in jeopardy or harm's way to save somebody else or to help somebody else. That was my idea of bravery. And so I was having a hard time with it, but I'm not married to any of my ideas. You know what I mean? If something makes sense to me, and I was able to like see through that and kind of understand and put myself in another person's shoes. Like, okay, well, who am I to say that because I don't understand what your concept of bravery is, that it's not valid? You know what I mean? Yeah. You're silly. You're talking about bravery. That's not bravery. That's just like something else. But who am I? I'm not in your shoes. I
get it though. I had major imposter syndrome. So the idea came to me where I was at a point of a little bit of helplessness. I felt very stuck. Like, I don't know what to do. I can't leave this role. And I finally, in frustration, wrote, "Why can't you be brave?" And from this, the whole outline of what became the journal came to me. And I wrote it very quickly. It took like only 2 weeks really for the whole thing to be written up as the journal. Like, what would I, and it came from a place of curiosity. What would I do if I was brave? And then I stuck it in a drawer and left it there for about 3-4 months because I had major imposter syndrome. Like, who are you to talk about this? You have led a life of privilege in many ways. You've had a lot of opportunity. And I didn't feel comfortable talking about it because my concept of bravery was very similar to yours. I'm like, I'm not a fireman. I haven't saved a lot. Like, it just didn't feel like the thing I should, but that was the word that came. And then finally it was a friend who said, look, you just have to produce it. And when you do, you can sell it in my shop. And she owns like a little healthcare shop locally to me. And that was like enough for me to go, okay, if I produce it and I lose some, at least I'll make some money back from this. But then what happened is there have been people who have, you never know who it needs to hear your message and why somehow the way you created it and the way you say it is exactly what someone else needs to hear. So for me, I might not be Malala or Brene Brown, who's kind of cornered the market on, courage and bravery. But for some reason, I've had people come up to me and say, this is what I needed at this time. And, you helped me get this raise. And one guy in particular had a relapse after 20 years with drugs and alcohol. It's not a personal experience I've had. And he said, this is what I need to just, it structured me to get back. And it was, for whatever reason, something that helped him. And it made me think, well, if I only produced this for this one guy, it was worth it. So it was a lesson in also getting out of your own way to allow yourself to support someone else. You don't necessarily know why. You have the right words that someone needs to hear.
No, that you make a good point. I go through that a lot with, people that I talk to, and like, you never, like, once you just start doing this and getting into this space and you're putting your message out there, however it is, whether it's in a book, a blog, a podcast, a journal, you never know who it's going to touch and in what way. And and I think it comes down to being ready to receive a message. Mm-hmm. Okay. So a lot of us are, we could see the same thing and, the same message coming from 5 different people, but at that particular point in time, when that message from that particular person happens to hit you when you are in a position to receive it, mm-hmm. it imprints on you.
Yeah.
And it puts you into action.
Yeah.
For sure. And we all have experienced that, I'm sure, at one point in time when, we've been struggling with something and, everybody's saying do this, but it's a complete stranger says it to you and you're like, oh, yeah, I should do that. And then your mom's like, I told you should have been doing that the whole time.
That's so true. Sometimes we need to hear it from some certain person. And, like what you're doing, I find it's another format of brave. There's probably days you don't want to do this. You might be tired, but you get out and you have the conversation and you uncover something that someone needs to hear. It's another path of living outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I actually do really enjoy the conversation parts of what I do. It's the other stuff that I really am not fond of. The marketing and all the time that you have to spend on the social media and everything that's involved with the back end of this to make it what it is. Right. I'm not complaining. It's fun. I mean, it kind of is what it is. And it is what it is until it isn't, right?
Right. I totally get that.
And maybe it turns into something. Maybe I help 100 people. Maybe I only help 1. But I mean, at least if I can get through to one person to help them to not have to make some of the mistakes I made, I guess it's worth it for me.
Yeah. For sure.
What part of the world are you in?
I am currently in Toronto, in Canada.
Okay. Yeah. I thought I heard a little bit of that Canuck accent, that Canadian accent.
I moved here in 2011 from England, so I kind of have a very mixed accent. I grew up almost half as many years of my life in London, England, as here. So I have a Canadian accent, but not a true Toronto accent, because if I was from Toronto, I'd say Toronto, and I don't say that yet. Maybe eventually, a couple more years.
Are you a Blue Jays fan?
I am, yeah. So I lived here in the two periods where we I mean, this dates me, but in the early '90s when we won the series, I guess, 2 years in a row. And then when I came back, it was again when we got close, but not quite, a couple years ago.
You got one of our star players from Oakland, old Josh Donaldson.
Oh yeah, that's right.
JD, yeah, he making it rain. He's the bringer of rain. Yeah, he was a great player. I really enjoyed watching him play. So here's another question I have about Canada, and the current situation that we're here in the United States, where we have a bunch of people that aren't working right now. I think we're at like 26 million currently are unemployed and rising quickly.
Yeah.
And part of the problem that people are facing is, and I would be facing it if I hadn't have gone on disability, but you have to work for your insurance because it's employer paid, your health insurance, your medical, dental, all of that stuff. And, we get kind of a skewed view of what, nationalized healthcare is. And, you hear a number of different people talking about, you're gonna be dead before you get your surgeries and all of this. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's just like disinformation that's being put out by the corporations that don't want to have anything to do with that, or the government, or whatever it is that is the opposition to that. And now as somebody who's in a national healthcare system, are those rumors true? I mean, is it?
It's interesting because growing up in the UK has the National Health Service, the NHS in England, and in Canada we have National Health as well. So I've only ever lived in this environment, and the opposite really scares me. So I've had while living in the UK, I had chronic sinusitis. I basically had to have surgery, and I didn't have to wait very long. So they do have like a line jumping system where you can top up, and I was under that, and so the health insurance through the company that allowed me to jump the line, so I only had to wait like a couple weeks for this non-urgent surgery, but I don't have any examples of friends who had to wait for health, and I say that the two examples because, and I'm no expert, I'm giving you purely my own personal experience. Because England versus Canada is a country of just over 30 million. So comparatively to the US, we have a system and that we don't have to wait as long versus the UK, where it's a huge creaking system. And in both cases, when I've needed access to doctors or surgery, I've never had to wait, and I'm very grateful for that. And I can't imagine the fear. I have a lot of cousins who live in the US, and I'm talking to them, especially right now. One of them had corona, and it's frightening. The idea of losing everything because you are sick, where we're scared enough that we're going to get sick, but at least we don't have that consideration. So
yeah, that if you do happen to get some services or some treatment of some sort here in the United States and you don't have medical, I mean, it's like you're going to get taken care of, but you're going to have a huge bill at the end of that, in the upwards of 50 to maybe 100,000, depending on how long your stay was and what exactly they did. It's crazy. It's absolutely just astonishing how expensive it is to live in the United States. Well, at least in my part of it. I mean, I'm sure in the rural areas and in the Midwest, I mean, it's not as bad, but I mean, you get, California, New York, super expensive. Hawaii, very expensive. And you're stuck on an island.
But it looks so beautiful. I mean, one day there's one place I'd love to go visit one day.
Yeah. It's nice. It's a good place to go. Maui's a good place to go visit. It's just really, it's expensive. But I mean, everything is getting expensive. Nothing is what it used to be, except for gas right now. But no one can go anywhere. Except no one can go anywhere. So,
It's this been it, I was it's the same price, or it's just gone up here a little bit, but it was the same price it was when I was in university, and this is like 20 years ago. So for a while, I was going out every day and taking pictures of it, and I'm like, I just want to drive just so I can, burn the gas. It's crazy.
Yeah, now I can afford to just go for a joyride.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, that's great. So any plans on like the journal is, is it like online, almost like a blog, or is it?
No, it's actually a physical product. So you're, and I can send you a link for the for your show notes as well, just to give you some more detail. It's basically it's kind of two things. One is it's an accountability tool, and I created it in a journal format because that's how I think. But the beginning of it is really when you have a lot of ideas and a lot of things you want to work on. There's so much science that tells you to focus on one thing, and how do you actually get clear on that one thing? And that's almost like a goal setting process. And so that is something that is in the journal, but it's now something I do as well with people that I work with in corporations and one-to-one. And it's really this work of I have a lot on and I feel overwhelmed, and particularly in a time right now, sometimes we just need a little bit of breaking it down into something very, very simple. And it's kind of like, what do you want? What does it look like? And what's the next step? And so in the most simple format, that's really the three things that the journal itself and what I do in the coaching and breaking it down. And that comes from my own experience of total overwhelm, of running big teams and having a lot of competing priorities, and nothing happens in that gray fuzziness. It kind of happens in the clarity of a black and white experience. And so that's what I hope to allow people to understand, that they have the ability to do it. I really believe the age of the guru is over. The role and even with the coaching is always, you have the answer. Let's strip everything away and get very clear so that you can hear what you need to do.
Yeah. And so do you think that's, like, I was talking to someone earlier about coaching and how it's become like this super, like everybody's a coach now.
Everybody's a coach. And I really wrestled with that myself. I created this product out of my own personal need, and I was still fully employed when I did it. And I threw it up on a Shopify store and I sell it online. And that was always my intent for it. And it was going to be this like side hustle. It became a full-time thing when the journal started to sell well, but also when people started to ask me if I would coach them. And at first I rejected the idea because, for all the reasons that you said, everybody's a coach, the market's saturated, nobody needs another coach. And I even wrestled with, is it really consulting? Should I say I'm just a consultant? And then I realized there's something in the definition that makes sense for me, and when I became comfortable with it, because there are coaches who will try and tell you how to behave and who you need to be. And there are therapists as well who have the scientific backing and education to do it, to want to talk to you. But what I like about the journal and what the coaching that I believe is possible is you allow the person to make decisions. You set a container for them to do a transformation. And your role is really just to point out where they're playing small, and that's it. And once you start to get into like, this is the right way, that's like what I don't want to be part of. For me, it's more about like holding a mirror up to someone and showing them possibility of what they already know inside. And you're not really showing them something that they don't know, because that's what's true,
Yeah, so you're basically just like, you're taking it from like, hey, look, you've got an ember that's inside of you, all right? Mm-hmm. That's already lit. We just need to find the right thing that's going to ignite it into a fire that you need it to be, to produce what you're already capable of producing.
100%. Like for me, bravery is a feeling, and you feel the thing that excites you and scares you and what feels right and wrong in your life. And so getting the ability to tap into that and then getting clear on the next step that you're taking is really what the transformation process would be. And I think that that's true for all of us. You don't really need me. You don't even need the journal. You have the ability to do it. A lot of people forget that because we're so told we're supposed to be this and that. And I will get to my life later. Let me just get through your priorities and my kids and whoever else. And the process of remembering who our inner leader is really what I find so interesting, because can you imagine what society would be like if we were all operating from a place where we accessed our inner leader and we were making decisions from a place that is good for our best self, because ultimately that's what's good for the collective self.
You'd have a lot of single people.
Well,
you'd have a lot of single people.
I do think potentially, but there's also a piece of like, and I struggle with this even in the way I talk about it, because when I say things like that, people ultimately go to this space of like, oh, it's going to be all super selfish. Like, it's not that at all. Because when you are full up, you are actually able to serve others in a much better way than you can from an exhausted, broken place where you've like broken your boundaries and you're helping others. But it is exactly that. Like you would be, at least for a while, if you're with the wrong person right now, for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, because, a lot of times people we don't pay attention to things, like, especially when we're involved in your life, your day-to-day life. You got kids, like you said, you got children, schedules, work, commute, by the time you get to your real life, what you want to be doing, there's no time for you.
And there's no energy left for it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, and that's what I said about you'd be single, because, a lot of times we're doing things for other people. And when we take the time, and hopefully a lot of people out there listening are doing this right now while you're being paid to be home. I mean, hopefully you're being paid to be home, in some form or another, or you're going to get paid by the government or unemployment, whatever it is that you've got going for yourself. Right now is definitely the time to be doing this. You should have been doing it the whole time. I mean, if I would have known that I'd be off for like 3 months, I probably wouldn't. So if I was to rethink it right now, knowing now what I know, I probably wouldn't have went so hard on the podcast, and I would have went a little harder on trying to write a book in this time, because it's like, when else am I going to have that opportunity? And like half of it's already almost gone. So, I mean, I can still try and get some of it done, but yeah, well, but I'll probably find some excuse not to.
I was just going to say, I mean, when it's the right time, the time shows up too. I really believe that. And to your point about what this time is, this great pause, like we're all in this giant cocoon. And I'm curious as to what emerges in terms of how we behave after. What will the new normal look like? Because did the normal that was before really work? Like, was that really something worth going back to? So how do we come out of this? Because whether we realize it or not, this pause is doing something to us. And I'm curious as what is it going to look like? It's interesting to see the places that are slowly coming out of it. Like how does that look? How will they behave? Are they ready to rush back into what wasn't working?
Yeah, no, I think there's going to be a lot of changes. I mean, this is nothing. What we're going through right now is the easy part. I mean, what's the financial damage going to be? What is there going to be any forgiveness for anything that can't get paid? I mean, where are we going to be with that? Is the government going to give some subsidies to people that can't afford their mortgages or their rent, because of something that was completely not their fault? What's that going to be like? That's what I'm interested in. And the other aspects of it. I mean, this is going to be a net positive across the board, but it could be a net negative too, depending on how it's handled.
Yeah. The thing that we talk about in Canada right now is we're lucky because some of these, there are subsidies happening right now for mortgages and the ability to ease off landlords to allow rent for free. This is something that's in the conversation, but there's also is increased stories of domestic abuse. And what is the mental health pandemic that we're all going to have after this? And how does that affect us? So we're in a great unknown. We don't know. And any of us could say, oh, it'll be fine. It'll be better. And there's a lot of things we don't know yet of what's going to happen once all of the dust settles, right?
Yeah. And that's a good point. You're talking about, mental health. People are being isolated. They're, having things that they were going through. They're having to, and they had these, all of these activities and things to hide behind. And now you have no choice, but you have to deal with yourself,
Oh yeah. I mean, this is how I wrote the journal 2 years ago. So I'm not necessarily a big baseball fan. I'm a soccer fan, or a football fan, as I call it. Then the World Cup happened, and I watched so much TV that I was disgusted with myself. So I canceled my cable. And it was the first Saturday after, where I had not made any plans and I was in a quiet house, that I just sat with this piece of paper in front of me. And that was when the idea, why can't you be brave? That was when that question came, because it was the first time I heard myself. There was no distraction or noise in the background. And that question came up. So I also think about that right now, because there are people in that situation, like you said, who are isolated, or there's also the opposite, where they don't have a moment to even breathe. But for those who are in those quiet places, I'm curious, what are you hearing, and what is it whispering in your ear? Because there can be some amazing pieces of creative out of that.
I think that coaches are going to be in high demand after all of this. Coaches of some sort. We've got all kinds of different ones. You've got Bravery coaches, you've got, you name it, they're out there.
Yeah.
And I think that people are going to start finding value in that. And I find value in it too. Like there's some things that I could use mentoring on. I'm just cheap. You know what I mean? I don't want to pay for it. And it's, that's part of my issue. I'm always trying to find a way to barter, or, hey, look, if you want to, do that. I was talking to one person and they gave me an outrageous price. And, I was like, well, you should look at it this way. I'd be willing to pay you, but I'm going to pay you not as much as you think you should have, because if it works and everything that you're telling me and trying to sell me works, I have the platform where I can blast it out to everybody as an example. So, you know what I mean? It's really, when you're dealing with people that can actually help you too, you have to think of it as, all right, well, maybe this is an investment. So I'll invest in this just so people can see that it works. You know what I mean? It's proof of concept.
Yeah, I get it. I had the same thought with coaches when I first kind of got into this world, and was like, how can that possibly be worth that? I have a different feeling on it now, obviously doing the work myself, but I also realized I've invested in my own coaches. And what I realized for me was that time is important. So particularly building a business, I came from a service-based industry. I didn't know anything about e-commerce, and bringing in coaches to help it literally cut years from the growth pattern, because instead of investing in all the wrong avenues, it became very clear, like, oh, you do this and you do this. This has to happen first. So it was totally worth it. But if the transformation is not something that's going to give you either time or money ultimately back, and you can't be promised, it is a questionable experience. You need to be able to understand what you're bartering for. So yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah, but who knows? I'll probably end up doing it. I'll score something. I'm a pretty good wheeler and dealer that way. That's part of my background. God, where'd the sun go? It got dark over here all of a sudden, or darker. I said, where did the sun go? I'm looking around and it just got darker over here all of a sudden.
Yeah. You're in California, did you say? Or?
Yeah, Northern California.
Northern California, okay.
It's a little
East Coasted. Looks brighter over here.
Yeah, it does. It's a little overcast over here. It's really windy. So I don't. Who knows? It's supposed to be a little bit better. I'm in a good area though. Northern California, right by the water, not the ocean, but a river. All right. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on today?
No, I think this was a really interesting conversation. We're in a time where I hope everybody has the ability to access their bravery, because that's what we need right now. So I wish that for all your listeners.
Yeah, me too. I hope that everybody's getting something beneficial out of whatever it is that you're doing right now. I saw a meme that was really funny, and it said, if you don't either start something, finish something or whatever during this whole time, then the problem was never you didn't have time. The problem was always you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the great pause. It's interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, go ahead and plug all of your places, your spaces, and anywhere you want people to follow you at, and where they can find the Bravery Journal. And then we'll also shoot me an email after this with a picture and the all of that stuff. That way I can just copy and paste it and throw it in there. And I don't get it wrong, because I get things wrong quite a bit.
No worries. If anyone is interested in, you can actually Google Vanessa and the Brave Journal and it comes up. But you can also find me on Instagram at brave_journal. And my company, my leadership coaching is under Courage Creator. So that's the website. But I'll send you all the links so they'll be easily seen in the show notes.
All right, great. Well, it's awesome. Thank you, Vanessa. I appreciate your time, and thank you for stopping by and hanging out with me this afternoon. And have a good weekend and be safe. Continue social distancing and wear your mask.
I'm doing all those things. I hope you guys are too. Take care. It's nice to talk.
All right, you too. Bye.
You've been listening to the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. Sean is a single dad, a union blue-collar guy, and he spent time in federal and state prison for drug trafficking and fraud. When he was released from prison in 2006, all he had was the clothes on his back, a bag of mail, and some paperwork. Since then, he's turned his life around and shares the struggles and successes on this podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we hope you were moved. To connect to the show, book a guest spot. For merch, Patreon, PayPal, and social media links, go to linktr.ee/nowhere to go but up. On Instagram at Nowhere to Go But Up Now. On Twitter at But Up Now. On the YouTube channel at Nowhere to Go But Up Podcast. See you next time.